Hey everyone! So it's the beginning of a new month, which means I thought I would cover all the books I read in last month, in April, as well as all the books that I plan on reading in May. Starting with the first book that I read last month was this, Crossroads of Twilight, which is, what is this? This is book number 10 in the Wheel of Time. And everyone says this is the worst Wheel of Time book in the entire series. And I gotta say, I 100% agree. This book is honestly, some of the other books in the Wheel of Time series were, especially the last couple ones, they were not good Wheel of Time books, but they were still, okay-ish books. This book is straight up bad. If I'm being perfectly honest, this is not a good book really at all. It is so slow, literally, almost literally, nothing happens in the entire story. You could sum up all of the important plot points that happen in this book in probably a couple sentences. Honestly, if you want to know anything important that happens in this book, just read the last chapter, or even the last couple pages of the last chapter. Other than that, this book is a complete waste of time. And it kind of pains me to say that, to be perfectly honest, because I'm going to use this as past tense, I was a very big fan of the Wheel of Time series. The first 3 books were pretty good. 4, 5, and 6 were absolutely amazing. 7, I can't remember if 7 is when it started to go downhill, but I definitely know 8 was not very good. 9 was mediocre at best. And this one now is just straight up bad. And it's kind of interesting in a way, because it almost seems like Robert Jordan is like trying to test the readers, the fans of this series, to see if they're willing to stick through to see the conclusion. Because the last 3 books, but especially with this one, they're not good. And this is just not a good book. It's probably the worst book I've read this year. I don't know if it's the worst book I've read in the last few years, but it was painful reading this. And I mean, this isn't a small book either. All of the Wheel of Time books are really, really long. And this one, is the same. It's at least 600 some odd pages. So it's not like, if it was a shorter book, it wouldn't be as bad, but it's 600 pages of literally nothing happening other than the last couple pages of the last chapter. The prologue alone really kind of sets you up for what's going to happen in this book, because it's just people talking and walking from one area to another area. And that's pretty much all that happens in this. People talking with each other, and oh, they were over here? Now they're over here and talking. It's just so boring. I mean, I really don't want to complain too much, especially starting off this video just complaining. But yeah, this is a terrible book. I didn't like it at all. And now, the last few books, I was really questioning if I was even a Wheel of Time, fan. After this, I'm going to say, no, I'm not a Wheel of Time fan. This book really has honestly killed the series for me. After reading this book, I'm taking a very, very long break from reading these. Now, I know, from what a lot of people have told me, if you can get through this book, then the series starts, improving drastically very quickly. But, oh man, I feel like I don't care anymore. And the thing is I don't even have the 11th book in the series, so I would need to buy it anyways, or go to the library or something to be able to read it. So for that reason, and the fact that this book is terrible, I'm going to be taking a fairly long break from reading the Wheel of Time series. So yeah, this book kind of broke me, and that is disappointing because I was a fan of the Wheel of Time, but after this, I don't know. I'm just not. Let's talk about the next book and something more positive, okay? This book is by Doug Brody. This is like an indie author. He actually, you know, let me just acknowledge the fact that he sent me this book, you know, free of charge to read it and, you know, kind of do a review or, you know, kind of talk about the book on my channel. So, you know, that's your warning. But I gotta say, I actually really like this book, especially after reading Crossroads of Twilight, where literally nothing happens for 600 pages and it's boring, 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 bad, bad book. This book, oh, this was such a good change of pace, because if that book is slow and nothing happens, this is like the polar opposite of this. This book is very, very fast and things are constantly happening. And it's, you know, not even that long of a book. It's what, not even 300 pages, like 270 pages. But I mean, it was after that, this was like a nice palate cleanser, if you will. Talking about this book a little bit, I'm not going to spoil anything in case you are, if you do want to end up buying it. It is by Doug Brody, I said. Shelly is the name of the book. But reading this book at first, I was a little worried because I was thinking, oh, it's just going to be like I, Robot. And for the first few chapters, it kind of does seem like it's going that way. But then the story takes a very drastic turn and kind of surprised me, honestly, where the story went. I can tell the author probably was a fan of Isaac Asimov, specifically I, Robot. Maybe a fan of 2001: A Space Odyssey as well, because I do kind of get a little bit of flavor in this book as well of that. But essentially, to kind of sum up the story without any spoilers, this book takes place in the far, far future, where androids or robots, they essentially more or less look like humans. Artificial intelligence has advanced to the point where, you know, it matches humanity or, you know, surpasses it, honestly. And some of these robots commit murders. So it's kind of sounding like iRobot. Shelly, you know, the title of the book, the main character, or well, the main robot, she's not necessarily the main character. She works with the police to essentially solve these crimes and figure out why some robots are committing murders. So at first I was kind of like, it kind of seems a lot like iRobot, but then the story takes a very, very big twist and I did not see where it was going. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this book. My wife, who's honestly not a fan of reading science fiction, she read this book too, and she actually really liked it as well, because again, it is a fast-paced book. It really keeps your attention. Honestly, a lot of times I was reading this, you know, you'd read one chapter and be like, okay, I want to go to bed, I'm sleepy. But then the way the chapter ends, it's like, all right, well, let me read one more chapter. And then, okay, let me read another chapter. It really keeps your attention very, very well. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a great book, but it is a very good book. I do have a few nitpicks, if you will. The ending sort of kind of makes sense, but I feel like it was a little forced for the closure of the story. And then one of my other big nitpicks, and this isn't necessarily getting into spoiler territory, but these robots have something called kill switches, so you can push a button and it essentially kills the robot, turns it off, if you will. These kill switches apparently can only work in close vicinity with the actual robot. And it just kind of seems silly because humanity has advanced to a point in the future where AI is super advanced, robots are super advanced. you know, this is far, far into the future, and it kind of gives an explanation a little bit, being like, oh, well, obviously for security reasons, we can't have robots connected to the internet, which, okay, that does make sense, but still, it's the far, far future. You would think that there would be some sort of technology available for this kill switch to work no matter where the robot is. Again, that's just a small nitpick, and of course, if that was possible, then this book would have ended far sooner than it did, because they would have just, you know, flicked the button and the end. So yeah, just a couple of really small nitpicks, but if you are a fan of, you know, science fiction, fan of, you know, really quick-paced books, something that really keeps your attention, honestly, a book that I found kind of hard to put down, especially at some points where, like, it's one action set piece after another action set piece after another. Really, really good book, and especially after reading Crossroads of Twilight, which was horrendously boring, this book was really, really good. So, you know, check it out if you are interested. Shelly by Doug Brody. The next, and technically last book I read this past month was this. And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. So this is, of course, a mystery book, because Agatha Christie's like huge mystery author, like the #1 selling mystery author of all time. I'm a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes, pretty much all of the Sherlock Holmes books, and I've read them all, and I was a little depressed because I was like, oh, I love Sherlock Holmes. But then, you know, I was like, you know, I've never read any Agatha Christie, so I figure, why not pick up And Then There Were None, because this is her #1 selling book. This is actually like the best-selling mystery book of all time, I think. It's at least in the top 10 best-selling books of all time, if you exclude, like, you know, religious books like the Bible or the Quran, things like that. But I believe it is one of the top 10 best-selling books of all time. And it's no wonder why, because this book is fantastic. Again, just like the Shelley book that I read, this book really was something I just wanted to keep reading and reading and reading and reading non-stop and really get through. And also, just like Shelley, it's a pretty short book. It's almost the exact same amount of pages, like 270 pages. Again, I'm not going to give any spoilers for this, but the overall plot is that 10 people go to this island, and then each person ends up being murdered. And you need to figure out who is the murderer out of these 10 people. And I thought I figured it out. I really did, but then I didn't. I mean, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it's really interesting. I feel like I need to read this book again now that I know who the murderer is. And it, you know, because then I would have a lot of background information, be like, aha, now I know who commits the murders. So I really did want to read this again. After I finished reading this book, I actually took a little break from reading, which is kind of unusual for me. Normally after I read a book, the next day I pick up a new book to read. After reading this book, I probably took like at least a few days, if not like a whole week off, to really think about this book, and because I just needed like time to process it, if you will. I thought this book was fantastic. I'm not necessarily sure I would consider it better than, you know, the Sherlock Holmes books, especially the best of the Sherlock Holmes books. But it might be. It very well might be. This is absolutely a fantastic book. If you're a fan of mystery or just fiction books in general, I would definitely recommend reading this book because it was amazing. So yeah, those are the 3 books that I read this month. There are the stack, if you will. I did start reading another book that I haven't finished yet, but we'll talk about that, as well as all of the books that I plan on reading next month right now. And it is this, Stephen King's The Shining. Now, I'm just very, very early on in this book, so I'm really not going to pass judgment all that much because I'm only on page 100. But this is, of course, one of, if not Stephen King's best books. Yeah, I did end up reading this book a while ago, like back in high school, or maybe even before high school, like middle school, junior high. Not sure when, but it was a very, very, very long time ago. Because back then I was really into Stephen King, and I haven't read any Stephen King since then. And this book, I really have no memory of it other than it takes place in a hotel and some guy goes crazy and does some murders or something. Haven't seen the movie either. But I do or did want to read this book, so I have started reading it. So far, it's fine. I mean, I'm not going to pass judgment because I'm only on page 100. They just barely got to like the hotel in the last chapter, so nothing scary has happened yet. There's kind of some unusual stuff with Jack. Is that his name, or John? I can't remember. With either Jack or John's son. So, you know, a little kind of creepy stuff with that. So we'll see where that goes with the story. But yeah, I am looking forward to finishing reading this book. It's a pretty long book. It's like that Wheel of Time book, almost like 700 pages. But I'm hoping that this is a really good book because I was really big into Stephen King a while ago. Kind of fell out of reading him for at least, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years, maybe not 20 years, but I haven't read any Stephen King books for probably at least like 15 years. So I do want to get back into it. And I thought, you know, why not start off with The Shining, since I do remember I really liked this book way back in the day, but I have no memory of it. So I want to see if it still holds up now that I've read, you know, a lot of other books. And if I am a big fan of this book, maybe I'll try reading other Stephen King books as well. So yeah, started reading it, but yeah, this is going to be the first book I read next month, in the month of May. After that, I think I'm going to go for something a little bit different, which is this book that I do not have the cover for because I got it like at a thrift store. But this is, I don't know if you can see that, this is The Odyssey by Homer. This is, again, another book that I read back in high school. I remember I really, really liked this book quite a bit. I did like a book report on it, actually. Was I holding that upside down? Maybe I was. Whoops. Wait, what the? Yeah, like that. Okay. The Odyssey. I did a book report on this, you know, back in high school, and I remember I really liked this book. But again, I have absolutely no memory of this book. Other than, I think it has to do with, maybe it was in ancient Rome with a Roman emperor who's trying to get home, something like that. I don't know. I'm gonna go in as blind as possible reading this book because honestly, the best way to read a book is to know nothing about it. Maybe that's why I loved this Agatha Christie book so much, because I had absolutely no idea what it was about. And other than, I mean, I knew it was a mystery book because Agatha Christie, obviously. But yeah, going into a book blind, honestly, a really good way. So I am looking forward to reading this book. It is, of course, a huge, huge classic. So yeah, kind of different from what I've been reading, you know, otherwise, but looking forward to reading that. And then the last book that I'm planning on reading is this, Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. Defoe, I think that's how you pronounce his name. This is, of course, a classic book, and again, kind of like the Odyssey, I don't really know much of anything about this book, so it has been sitting on my bookshelf for a while. It is a classic. I mean, pretty much everyone's heard of Robinson Crusoe before, so I do want to end up reading this and, you know, seeing if I enjoy it. It's at least a somewhat short book, only about 300 pages. But yeah, that is going to be the last book that I'm planning on reading this month. I don't know if I will be able to finish it. I might. That's not too many books. I mean, honestly, last month I could have read more if it wasn't for this, Crossroads of Twilight really taking up a ton of my time and being a slow read. But yeah, those are going to be the 3 books that I am planning on reading next month. So with that, let me know if you have any comments or questions down below. If you've read any of these books, have any opinions of, Crossroads of Twilight, Shelley, or And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Let me know down below. Or if you've read any of these books and, want to let me know how you like them or enjoyed them or disliked them, let me know as well. Normally, I close these videos saying, all right, bye, I'll see you next week, because I plan on posting weekly. I think I'm going to be taking a few months off, kind of taking a break from YouTube. I have like a lot of things going on between like my personal life, work life, life in general. So you might have noticed in the past few weeks, I haven't really been posting. I was always trying to post every Monday. Haven't really been doing that. My consistency has been really kind of going downhill. So with this video, this is going to be kind of my last video for a little while at least, because I am planning on taking a little break from YouTube, at least a few months. Don't know when I'm going to be back. I don't want to necessarily just throw out some arbitrary date. But I do plan on coming back to YouTube, of course, because I do like doing this. I just kind of need a break to deal with life. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I guess I'll see you around next time. Bye.